Hey guys, today I want to show you a definitive list of what I consider to be the 10 best turn-based JRPG hidden gems out there. I feel they need more attention since they're very good and underappreciated, so let's begin. Number 10. Okage, Shadow King. A young, unlucky kid finds himself possessed by the previously sealed evil king Stan. Together with some crazy-ass bizarre characters, they will start a journey to defeat the fake evil kings so Stan can retake his powers. Unusual plot, which is why I like it. It's all about the characters themselves, their quirkiness, and their funny comedic bits. I know the art style is weird, but that's part of its charm. Only a few towns and dungeons are present in this game, and you'll be going back and forth between them while walking through an overworld infested by phantoms. If one of them touches you, a battle will begin in turns, but time will only stop when one of your 3 party members' turn comes up, so you can decide their next action. The turn order rarely makes any sense here, which can make some battles slightly difficult, but nothing too hard. If you're wondering if Stan, that big shadow, fights, he does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, but it's rare to see him actually do something. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the gameplay itself is also a comedy and often doesn't take itself seriously. Repetitive puzzles are there inside the dungeons and can get really tiresome sometimes. However, fighting enemies is the only way to level up and make money, cause the economy here is a pain. Regardless, this game surprised me and surpassed the low expectations I once had long ago. Number 9. Super Robot Taisen OG Saga Endless Frontier. Before you ask, you don't need to play any other game in this long-running series to get into this one. As a matter of fact, it's quite different from them and it's developed by Monolith Soft. It's a futuristic setting in the Endless Frontier. You control Haken, a bounty hunter, and his assistant, the android Ashen. They explore the deepest part of some ruins, but only to find Princess Kaguya as the bounty herself they were looking for. All sorts of nonsensical things happen after that. It doesn't take itself seriously, it's mostly a comedy with some bits of intrigue every now and then, and tons of fan service. While the gameplay is traditional like in most JRPGs you'll see today, visiting different places with a world map connecting them, the combat is just not. The point of battle is to create different combos in each character's turn, beating the crap out of your enemies of course. Sometimes co-op attacks may happen between your party members, which include guest characters like Cosmos from Xenosaga. While the game's tough and challenging, this combat is quite addictive, though random battles can also take a while because of it. This is a similar battle system seen in Namco Cross Capcom, which never came out of Japan, but it evolved into what we now know as Project Cross Zone 1 and 2 on the 3DS. All these games developed by Monolith Soft too. This is such a great game. There's also a fan-translated sequel on the DS in case you're interested. Number 8. Lost Sphear. Lost Sphear is a humble love letter to 16 and 32-bit classic JRPGs. Perhaps you're more familiar with I Am Setsuna by the same developers? Anyway, here you play as Kanata, a young boy with the power to use people's memories to restore lost towns. That's right, they've been lost to the white void caused by unknown reasons, so Kanata and whoever joins him must find out why so they can stop it from spreading. This is a traditional style RPG, so you'll visit towns and areas with an overworld in between. Music by Tomoki Miyoshi is beautiful, often nostalgic and melancholic. Graphics are more on the indie side of things even though the game's published by Square Enix, but the visuals are beautiful. In battle, characters can select their attacks based on a linear range so they can move around. This will affect the flow of battle, which never stops as in a real-time procedure, so choosing the position your characters will end up in after their turn is the key to success. Eventually you'll be able to fight on powerful mech suits, but combat will remain virtually the same. The game's not grindy, but it isn't a walk in the park either, but I do recommend it for beginners and veterans alike. Number 7. Hexyz Archive. A collaboration between Spike Chunsoft and Tri-Ace. Kanata, no, not the same guy from Lost Sphear. He dies but wakes up in the planet of Protolexia, A bunch of other students, including some of his friends, apparently died too and are there. So with the help of a mysterious voice, the story will progress by finding the missing students and together find out what's going on and what's this Proto-Lexia planet. No towns here at all, just a really small base of operations with a shop. The majority of its gameplay directs the player through areas or dungeons traversed in 2D with beautiful graphics. Some puzzles are present and most of them need to be solved through crafty platforming. Enemies can be seen in plain sight, and once you engage them, you'll be thrown into a full 3D perspective. Only 4 characters can partake in combat, each assigned to one action button in your controller. There's a player phase with an action points bar. It is shared amongst the party, so you need to decide how many times each character will perform their combos by clicking their assigned button. During the enemy phase, you can have your characters, especially the ones up front, to guard. But guarding each attack requires action points from the bar, so balancing things out is what you need to fight properly. The game's grindy and tough, but it's still very worth playing. Story can have different endings depending on your choices near the end, but it's a great plot, so give it a chance if you can. Number 6. Arc Rise Fantasia. A fated encounter between a soldier named Lark Bright and a priestess called Rifia results in Lark being the chosen warrior to stop the war and restore the world. However, the story here is like in the Tales series where one thing leads to another and halfway through the game, the plot has changed to something different from its premise. Yeah. Though I'd like to point out it is very well written, sadly it has terrible voice acting in English for the majority of its characters if you go with the physical version. If you're emulating, perhaps you may find a patch with the original Japanese dub. Anyway, in this colorful world you'll find yourself traversing in a very traditional style of gameplay, going from town to town with an overworld in between and various areas, ruins, dungeons, etc. No random encounters whatsoever, but it may be hard to avoid enemies here and there. All party members are bound by an action points bar and can only act if there are enough points. Yes, shared amongst them all, kinda like in Hexyz Archive. This is why combat is very strategic, as you'll need to determine if you want just one character to use them all in one turn or have everyone do something different. Sometimes you'll have a guest character out of your control, but they can really come in handy as this is a very difficult game. It's also a no bullshit grind fest, so you'll be fighting a lot before some of the nastiest bosses in the game. All in all though, it's a strongly recommended hidden gem, which also includes music by legendary composer Yasunori Mitsuda. Number 5. Fuga Melodies of Steel. War has broken out in a world inhabited by anthropomorphic creatures. A bunch of kids want to rescue their families who have been taken hostage by the Empire. To journey and fight, they encounter a huge tank called the Tyrannis. This one needs at least 6 of the kids to operate its 3 weapons, 2 on each one of them. There's a triangle system here which corresponds to each character, weapon and enemy, since each kid can only specialize in one type of weapon. But yeah, one type is stronger than the other and so on. This is the reason why, however, this combat is quite addictive. You'll need to be switching kits around to figure out which weapon is best to attack the enemies that are weak to it. Switching them out to other kits in the roster also helps significantly when they're about to die. Speaking about dying, besides finding their families and alter the course of war, the goal of the game is also to never use the major powerful cannon of the tank, because in order to use it, you need to sacrifice a kid, and if you do that, then permadeath comes in. This game isn't too hard, fortunately, so to get the best ending, just make sure to never use that damn cannon. Other gameplay mechanics revolve around simulation. Kids can talk to each other to increase bonds and perform better in battle, explore ruins to get better items to increase the tank's equipment, etc. You can only do a few of these things per turn as you advance in the non-linear map. Lovely game, beautiful visuals, memorable music, heartbreaking story. It's got everything to be a must-play turn-based RPG. Number 4. Hexyz Force. In the middle of a war, Levant and Cecilia will have to work separately until they meet to put a stop to it. That's the gist of the game, but obviously you'll have to do both playthroughs with each character separately, which is worth it because that's the only way to get the final boss and ending. Plus, each has their own storyline, events, dungeons, bosses and party members. It's also a fairly short game, perfect for beginners, not too easy but not too hard either. The gameplay is quite traditional in the sense of exploring towns, dungeons and your base of operations. There are no random encounters, thankfully you can see the enemies around and avoid them if you want to. In combat, you can use up to 3 allies and position them in a small basic formation. There's an RP required to use any skill whatsoever, but using them will fill up the Force Burst, which will let you execute a powerful attack. Enemies have elemental strengths and weaknesses so you can exploit them. Finally, there's a Judgment of Balan's Sight, and depending on your actions, it'll determine if you're leaning more towards creation or destruction. These actions include dialogue choices, running from battles, doing side quests, defeating bosses and all that jazz. This will affect the ending, of course. Anyhow, this is a fantastic RPG. Number 3. Tonelico 2. I always felt people knew about these games, but the majority seems not to. They've become more and more forgotten over the years. I picked the second one because I rarely talk about it, but the first one is just as good. This one takes place a year and a half after it, but with other characters, conflicts and such. I don't feel it's that necessary to play Melody of Khemia first, but it's recommended. They're both science fiction settings with post-apocalyptic backgrounds. You will need to play the prequel to the series called R No Search to understand that last part. That's one turn-based RPG I also strongly recommend, by the way. Tonelico 2 follows Croy, a knight of the church sent to investigate the origin of a horrible pandemic that's killing Ravatales, magical girls with the ability to sing song magic to fight in battle. Actually, the game revolves heavily about these girls, and there's different endings related to which of the Ravatale heroines you bond with the most. To bond with them, you'll need to play some mini visual novels when diving into their subconsciousness, which also helps to develop stronger song magic. This is used during combat with a few party members taking quick turns to attack their enemies, but also shielding their Ravatales. Using their different song magic previously built after several turns can do massive damage, so always focus on it for the bosses. This game has incredible character development, and despite its lewd content and silly appearance, the plot can sometimes take some serious dramatic turns and plot twists. Definitely recommended. Number 2. Khemia 2. Unless NIS remasters this game along with its slightly more popular prequel, it'll always be a hidden gem. Years after the events of the first game, a new generation of students starts their term to become alchemists. Some characters of the first game come back as teachers, but I don't feel it's that necessary to play it before this one. You'll be playing on small periods involving homework assignments, which are either story quests or side quests. Some will take you to explore areas or dungeons, and others to synthesize stuff, like in the Atelier games. Synthesis is simple, nothing convoluted, but it'll get trickier the more you advance. It's also really helpful in creating better equipment for your characters. It matters a lot which protagonist you choose at the beginning, since there's 2 of them, Ulrika and Razelux. They both have their own party members and stories, so it is recommended to complete a playthrough with one and then the other. Battles are played in turns from the side. You can use skills, magic, or even the items you synthesize for battle. Combos are there that revolve around switching party members mid-battle from one of your roster. It's really good and intuitive, and with some badass music to accompany both regular and boss battles. This game is surprisingly better than its predecessor, so I hope it gets remastered one day to rid itself of the hidden gem label. Number 1. Fate Extra. A few years ago, a full remake of this beauty was announced and confirmed earlier this year. I'm guessing we'll finally see it somewhere in 2023. In this game, your male or female silent protagonist must train one of the 3 different servants to compete in a bizarre tournament for the Holy Grail. You do this while attending high school, but there's no simulation, just scenes and dialogue. It does feel like a visual novel at times, so be ready to read a lot. To train your servant, you'll have to take him or her to virtual dungeons and fight monsters. You'll have a week to do that and train them as much as you can. In battle, your servant will fight in a rock-paper-scissors turn-based system. You need to learn the patterns of your enemies so you can choose which type of attack you'll use to counter and succeed. You can also use your character to give the servant commands like use of skills or even to heal them. This is one of the most unique battle systems I've seen in a JRPG, devising your strategies in a guessing game, and it's also implemented with the bosses. The game's challenging because of this system, but it's very rewarding. I love the music, which kinda reminds me of the Persona series with some blues and jazz tunes combined. I also think the story is incredibly well written with a lot of unexpected plot twists. I don't know if this is an underrated game or simply a hidden gem anymore, all I know is that I love it. There you have it, guys, my 10 favorite turn-based hidden gems in the JRPG universe. I know some are expensive and rare already, but there's always emulation, or a patient wait for them to get remastered one day. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!